talk to us tonight about conflict zone.
Yes, about conflict.
Okay, thank you so
I'm
much.
trying to figure it out after 20 years, so it's all good.
Welcome, welcome to the club.
Thank you,
Thank you
Matt.
so much, Abuna.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me, and it's always a pleasure to be here. Okay, so we'll talk about conflict or conflict resolution. Let's start with like a little story, and I think some of you maybe know me already, but I like to give you like real examples, things that happened in my marriage. So it's okay. Like we share these things. I usually take authorization from my wife to share these things, but that's okay. You can verify. So I probably I want to say maybe year one. It was like towards the end of the year. I'm originally from Montreal, so it's like cold. I'm used to it. I don't get like really cold easily. My wife is like, in July, if it's like 28 degree, we put a jacket. So, the thermostat in our house, there's usually a conflict about it. So I usually do like 21.5. This is optimal. We should just keep it this way. It's okay to feel a little bit cooler. It's actually healthy for you, all that stuff, right? But when you are in like, you do it and like people puts it back like at 23, then I went to back like, I put it 21 and then like, and then one day I remember Irini turned it completely off. So I actually like woke up in the middle of the night. I'm like freezing now. It was like middle of the winter. She turned it off. And then I realized at that point that the conflict was what? Was not temperature. Was who's gonna win it, right? So it was not any more temperature. And I think that is the definition of conflict. It's actually two people that love each other deeply, but they have different opinions, different ways, different upbringing, different ideology, and they're trying to figure it out. Another example is like how we put, the dishes in the dishwasher. It's so it's not only me, thank God. It almost make you feel good when you talk about these things. But anyways, so like the way that we put like the dishes, like you have someone that is OCD at home and we have to put it in a certain way, and other person is like, it's okay, it's gonna get washed regardless, right? We're not gonna I'm not gonna lose my salvation on the dishes. It's gonna be just fine. But this is the type of conflict that regularly we go through as like husband and wife. So when you look at like the conflict or the definition of conflict, it's a clash of like needs, expectation, ideology between two people that love each other. So even Christian godly couples, they have conflict. So it's not, number one, we need to all agree that it's okay to have conflict, right? Because if we start by saying like as Christian, like we should never have conflict, that's unrealistic. Like, I mean, there's so many people, even in the Bible, right? Like you look even at St. Paul and St. Peter, right? Like at some point had conflict, right? And it's okay, we're human beings. And we are okay to have conflict, but it's not okay to stay divided. And that's, I think, the key for a lasting Christian marriage or a Christian marriage. It's it's not okay to stay divided, right? If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. In Mark chapter 3, verse 25. When you look at St. Augustine, has a beautiful saying. It says, unity is the sure sign of love. Division is the fruit of pride. So go back like to the thermostat, like example, it was definitely pride, right? It's like, who's gonna win? It's like, for me, in my head, it doesn't make sense to put it over 21.5. And for her, it's like, okay, I'm cold, then I need to put it up, right? It's as simple as that. It's something, you take something so simple and we make it about ourselves and who is going to win. So as a couple, we become not partners, but we become opponents, right? In every conflict. So even when you take, like, the dishwasher, it's like, okay, you do it this way, I do it that way. So now we're not partners. We're not doing things, to work together, but we want one to give up their ways and to follow my way. So we become opponents. So that's kind of like a little bit like the definition of like conflict, right? Like in a Christian marriage. But like, let's kind of open the conversation, like the discussion a little bit. But like, what are the triggers for conflict, do you think? Hit me. So pride, absolutely. So ego and pride, that's number one, where it's I want to win because I think that I know best, or I've been doing it this way and it's been successful. So why change? Now you need to abide by kind of this because I mean it's been working, right? So ego and pride, that's a trigger. Another one.
If one spouse had a bad day.
Excellent. So emotions, like emotional overload, or like stress, or anger, or whatever it is, right? Like sometimes it can be emotional, right? Like I'm coming back from work. Typical example, like my job is to get the garbage out. Thank God I don't have this this job anymore because I ask my kids to do it, so it's great. But now that this is, let's say, as agreeable, okay, I do this job. But one day I had a very stressful day at work, and I am going to take the garbage out. This is my job, but I did it a little bit later. And then I am stressed, I'm overloaded, and finally my wife says, "Oh, thank God you're doing it now." Boom. That's it. That's the end of the world. Really? Like I'm already doing it and I'm stressed. So now it becomes a conflict. Why am I doing the garbage and not? Why are you not feeling for me? And why are you adding this comment? And it becomes a conflict just because I am stressed or I am emotionally overloaded. Great point. Another trigger. I have 5 for you, so let's work it out. Another trigger. What about communication skills, communication gaps, right? It's like I misunderstood the tone. We're yelling, or I'm communicating something and I just use the word, "You always do this," and now it became like "you always," or "you never do that," and then boom, it becomes a conflict. What do you mean? I mean, we've been married only for 2 years. How never came already? Like it's only 2 years, never, like really, and so on, right? And it becomes a conflict. So communication gap. What about unmet expectation? We all have our expectation, right? I mean, ladies, Abuna, he knows me by now. He should be able to read my mind. Should just think about it. And he's like, it's like reading it. I've been trying to read my wife's mind like for after 20 years. Sometimes it's hard, guys. So guess what, ladies? Please dumb it down. It's just cocaine. It doesn't make any less of us. Just dumb it down, verbalize it, like say it. Unmet expectation, gentlemen, right? Sometimes we want things done in a certain way, and we think that we mentioned it a couple of times before, and it should be like kind of understood. And I don't like when like she gets out of my car and like bang the door. I hate it, right? But guess what? Like she doesn't think about it the same way. I am. So that's okay. Like unmet expectation. It shouldn't be, I thought you would do this way because you know me by now. Or like, how many times did we talk about like love language? My love language is like physical touch. But when I want to cuddle, I want to have my laptop on me and like going through my emails. But she just wants to cuddle. Doesn't work with me. Why? It becomes an unmet expectation. So I think we talked about like, oh yeah, and maybe one more. So we talked about unmet expectation, communication, stress, right? Or emotional overload, ego and pride. And then last, what about different backgrounds, different upbringing, right? Like we, as a family, we always have like dinner on the table. We sit down, we talk, we take it. It's like, this is how I was brought up. But some other family, I mean, like we still eat together in the living room. TV is on, music is on. There's like so much like overstimulation, but this is the way it is for them. So now you're going to amalgamate those two into the new union that is yours, right? So most of the times it's hard because now, God forbid, if let's say he brings his plate, of food and sit down in front of the TV, like what happened? No, sorry, Abu Narnak. That's okay. So, it's for him, it's very normal. I mean, we can eat together in front of the TV and it's still like, we can still have a conversation. But then, for her, it's very important that we're so like focused together. It's a meal. We talk about our days. We ask about each other. We have a conversation. We ask the kids or no, and so on, right? So it's different upbringing that brings a certain type of conflict at some point because I am seeing it. It's so strange, right? It's so strange for me, like to eat in front of the TV. So those are kind of triggers for the conflict. So how are we going when we get into one of these conflicts? As a Christian couple, we need to start thinking about maybe I'll give you 5 points, right? So we'll talk about 5 points mainly, and then we can open the conversation a little bit, like how do you feel about those points? And finally, I'm going to leave a document. I'm going to send it to you, Mariam, just a document. It's almost like a conflict resolution kind of template where when you have a conflict, you can start like writing the conflict, you discuss it, you like what step by step what you should do, So how do we kind of solve any type of conflict? And again, we're talking about conflicts that happens based on those triggers. So we're not talking about a major conflict that needs intervention and stuff like that. We're talking about the day-to-day conflicts regularly that sometimes it becomes a built-up. Also, like conflicts, we need to really discuss. We need to share our opinion. We need to be honest with each other. That whole concept of like, oh, what's wrong with you? No, nothing does not work. You need to say what's the conflict? Why are you not happy? Or why were you hurt? Or why you feel not loved? And so on, because that will also fix conflict. But let's talk about 5 main points. Number 1, if you look at, the book of St. James, chapter 1, verse 19, it's a Bible verse that we all know. Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. When we have a conflict, what we do first is we start getting, hyped up, anger. We start either raising our voice because I want to make a statement. I want to show the other person that I am disappointed. I am angry. And the more, someone raises their voice, the other person put their guards up and pull themselves completely from the conflict or from like talking, or we start like yelling at each other because now it's becoming back to the pride. It's like, who's going to win this argument? So that's not the way that we solve a conflict. So first and foremost, we need to pause before you react. So when at some point, like I was doing like family counseling, and Abuna, actually, you can help me with this, but there's like a technique of telling you, like, you have an object, like, in your hand, like when you're having a conflict or you're having a discussion or an argument. So it helps you to listen to each other, because unfortunately, sometimes when we're explaining or when we're fighting, Karim is telling me something and I'm already thinking about how am I going to respond. So I'm actually not listening to what Karim is telling me. All I'm saying is just like, how I'm going to win this. I'm going to tell you this. So I am not listening. So for us to listen, they tell you like you can have an object as long as it's not like the knife from the kitchen or anything, just like a safe object, a pen, a cross, right? And whoever has the object in his hand is the one that is able to speak, and the other person is listening. And once you're finished, you can't like talk also for like 2 hours, like you need to give the other person a chance. But you need to say, okay, so now you need to listen. The other person is listening because they don't have like the pencil or like, you know, the cross in their hand. And when it's done, then you switch, you know, spots. And now I have the cross. Now it's my turn to, you know, speak. So number one, we need to pause a little bit before we react. And that's why we say like, let every man be swift to hear, right? Like slow to speak, slow to anger. Like take a deep breath. Like sometimes like we're so hyped up. Like I wanted to say how I feel before understanding why Irini brought like the temperatures to 23. Like I didn't want to understand that concept, right? Like that it's a simple, I'm cold, right? But I wanted just to prove a point and just change the temperature back, right? What about when we are in an argument, which is something very hard to do, but what about praying, you know, in my mind, especially when I'm having the argument, and asking God to help me to understand and not to be understood. So just help me to understand what the person is saying. So we're arguing with each other, but we need to start incorporating a little bit of a prayer. I'm not going to leave my spouse and like go pray like the whole compliant prayer when she's like going crazy. No, don't leave. Don't be passive aggressive and tell her like, Habibti, we have to pray. Don't do that. But the concept is actually to pray while you are in the argument, even if it's a short prayer, like the Jesus prayer, just something that will make you realize that you guys are partners together and you're not opponent. Something that will ground you back to what is so important to you. When we both, like me and Irini, or any of you guys like got married, it's your cross to salvation. It sounds dark a little bit, but it's actually a beautiful cross if you think about it. It's your cross to salvation. That's how you're going to be saved. That's how you're going to get to heaven. It's by working things out between you and your spouse regularly. You're going to be working on your pride. You're going to be working on your like holiness. You're going to be working on so many things. Your spouse is like the best mirror. She's going to tell you the way it is. Or he's going to tell you the way it is. But gentlemen, don't say it when they're asking you, how do I look? Saying, you do you. Just said it. So mainly, the first point is just to kind of calm down, take a deep breath, say a little prayer. When you know that the argument is going to be heated, when you know it's rising, you need to slow down. Sometimes we even need to take a break. You can say time out. I'll tell you honestly, something that we started after years of like argument is like when we see that the conversation is not going anywhere, one of us have to say, babe, conversation is not going anywhere. We need to take a break. Because we know that now it's like we're not budgeting. It's done. You are going in your, like, whatever you want in your mind, and I'm going. So how is it going to end? It's not going anywhere. Take a break. Take a break, but say we're going to revisit, let's say in an hour. We're going to revisit before we go to sleep. So at least if someone, you know, like there's always one in the couple that want to talk about it and now. We want to fix it and now, right? And the other person is usually like, can I take a break? Can we think about it? And it's like, no, let's talk about it now. So to compromise on that is to take a break, but to promise each other that we're going to be revisiting this conversation in an hour. And during this hour, we can go back either like, you know, watch a show, go do something together in the kitchen, try to either be together, or if you don't want to be together and like someone want to go like, you know, pray by themselves, like they want to like to take a break, that's okay too. But then make sure slow to speak, slow to anger. When you are going, you know, into a conflict, make sure you slow down, you pause before you react. Okay, so that's number one. St. John Chrysostom says, he who restrains anger conquers the devil. And this is like an exercise for us, like, about pride, about like, controlling our anger. And that's why I say always, like, as a joke, I always tell Irene, you're my cross to salvation. Why? Because when I have to work on, like, me getting angry, then at least I'm going to score some point, like, to go to heaven. That's great. It's only because of her, right? So that's first point. Number two, as a Christian couple in any conflict, we have to communicate with humility and love. Under no circumstances, guys, you should not ever use violence or even violence in words. Don't call each other stupid and dumb in an argument, because it's going to sound very different. When you're saying the word stupid and dumb, when you're angry, it's going to be different, and it can break trust. It can break a certain level of comfort and trust between husband and wife. So do not use any type of violence in terms of your words. You have to always communicate. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, it says, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of Christ. You can still be honest, but it always has to be in love. It's interesting, when we're at work, we watch what we say. When we want to, say the truth, we still say it. To my manager, to my boss, to like my colleagues, I say what I want, but I always have to watch what I say. When I come to home, and when it comes to my wife or to my spouse, who cares? I mean, she knows I love her. He knows I love him. We all know, but you need to prove it. And proving it, it's actually during conflict. It's very easy for us, like, to love each other when everything is going well, right? But when it's during conflict, that is a proof of love. So make sure you do it right. When you're communicating, try always, instead of, using those words, you always do this, or you never do that, right? Try to say, like, I feel this way when you do this, right? Because when we say I feel, so I'm actually sharing the way I feel based on your reaction. So I'm trying to explain that your reaction might be right or wrong. I'm not pointing finger at your reaction. I'm just telling you the way I feel based on this reaction. So the other person in front of me might hopefully listen. But if I'm going to start telling him, like, you know what? You're wrong because you do this always, or you talk this way, or you're not listening to me, or you never pay attention, then okay, I'm going to put my guards up. And what am I going to do is I'm going to defend what you just told me. You told me I never do that, so I'm going to defend. No, I do, and I did it 1995 at 2 p.m. and so on, right? And we go, and it's trickling down effect.
You say, I feel you never do, or you always do.
Then you missed the point.
That way? What?
I feel.
Just adding the word I feel.
Yeah, I feel you never do this, or I feel you always do that. When we are communicating as well, we need. Huh?
Smart guys.
I know. Anyways, when we are communicating, make sure also to put yourself in your spouse's shoes, even if you don't relate, even if you don't think it's right or wrong. Try to understand when you're communicating the way they feel, even if, you know what, I don't know, I had a bad day and I'm so stressed, so I'm very, like, short-tempered, I'm like impatient. And me, I was like, okay, like, we all have bad days. Like, why are you impatient? Like, I mean, we should just disconnect from work, and work is work, and home is home, and this is our, like, safe space and all that stuff. People are different. One of you can be great at that they were able to separate between, like, work-life balance and all that stuff. That's great. But some people are not. So you need to be understanding of the other person that they're not able to do that. And that is fine. They're entitled. It's not because you're able to do it that means she or he are needs to do it the same way. So when you're communicating, then you need to also understand their point of view and empathize with them, right? Um, when you can also, like when you're communicating, you can ask the question, how can I make you feel more loved? Sometimes when we are communicating, we're pointing finger about our behavior, but we're not talking about the feeling or the way I felt based on your behavior. So if that comes into the conversation, then I need to ask the question, how can I make you feel loved even when this happens? So for example, like we're fighting about whatever, like the toilet seat is up or down, right? Something like crazy like that. Then we're discussing it and I'm extremely angry. And I was like, oh, you never take care of that or something like this. But then you can say like, okay, I understand. I do it, often, or I didn't pay attention and I'm sorry. But how can I prove to you that I love you regardless of like the toilet seat? Because in my mind, I mean, the toilet seat is not a proof for me like to love you or not. Like I love you. I don't have to show it was the toilet seat, but maybe for her it's very important because the question of putting the seat down, it means that I thought of her convenience, right? So it made in her mind, it's very important because I thought of her, right? Even in a very little detail. But for us men, I mean, it's like, I love you. I love you and toilet seat is different. They don't like go together, right? So we talked about like the first point, we're gonna pause, right? Before we kind of like react. And then number two, when we're going to start communicating and open our mouth, we're going to communicate in love and humility, right? Number three, we're going to apologize quickly and forgive quickly because we're partners. We're not opponents. We're not keeping score. It's like, oh, he was wrong like 2.5 times this week. I was wrong only once, so I still have room. And you see what I mean? Like it's actually interesting. I don't know if like Abuna, you can share your experience, but sometimes honestly I speak to a couple and I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like we're keeping count of like who took care of the kids, so I can go out. And if I took care of the kids on Saturday because he went out with his friends, then I get one time out with my own friends. It doesn't make sense. Like this is a family, right? Like we don't keep score, guys. If you wanted to live as a Christian, couple and a Christian family, it's not about keeping scores. Who is like, more wrong? Who, like we need to forgive and apologize. Even if sometimes get in the habit of saying, I'm sorry. It's okay. You're not like nothing is going to happen to you when you say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made you even like, feel maybe this way. I didn't mean it, but I'm really sorry. It's okay to say I'm sorry. And it's okay also to forgive quickly. By the way, forgiveness is a choice, right? Like forgiveness is not a feeling. Sometimes we mix between a feeling and a choice, right? I forgive, that means I have to feel good about it. And like, no. Forgiveness is a choice. It's either I forgive or I don't. Sometimes I don't forget, but that's fine. That's with time, maturity. But like forgiveness, because forgiveness and apologizing, that always helps in terms of conflict. It says in Ephesians chapter 4, do not let the sun go down on your anger. So let's not resent things and let it kind of, grow overnight. Try to talk about things regularly, right? And if you're not able to talk about it like regularly because it's heated, then we said we're going to take a break. We're going to promise talk about it like, the end of the night. Sometimes, by the way, sometimes you're not going to be able to talk about it like, at the end of the night. That's okay. Try to learn, at the beginning of your life together, to have a day where you maybe go grab a coffee together or like, lunch outside or something like that, outside of like, home, and just have that time to kind of discuss a little bit, things that maybe happened, like during the week, or like that argument that happened and we never talked about. But don't let it kind of go, let's not brush things under the rug, right? Like that Egyptian way, like we just put everything under the rug and hopefully nothing happened, right? Don't do that, because the whole concept of brushing things under the rug, like then, you let go once, twice, 3 times, 10 times, 100 times, and then one time you're going to just poof, explode. And the other person is like, what happened? You never told me so. I was like, what? I never told you? Like, I got angry like 2,000 times before, but it doesn't matter because you did not verbalize it. So we have to forgive quickly and apologize. And also try to, when you discuss things, like the conflict, try to say, the person says, I'm sorry, and the other person can say, like, I forgive you. Just so that we're able to understand that actually, when I say I'm sorry, the other person kind of like, okay, it's accepted. Because sometimes we resent that fact that we're saying sorry, but the other person like have no reaction. I'm sorry. Okay. Like, I would like to feel that at least I said I'm sorry. I worked on my pride. Then it's time for also you, like the second, like spouse, like to also work on their pride and to say, okay, we're going to let go because we're going to forgive quickly. Because trust me, the dishwasher is not going to come to heaven with you. So it's okay to put the dishes the way it is. So now we forgive, we apologize quickly and fully. St. Basil the Great usually says, he who forgives his brother imitates God. So when you make a decision to forgive, you're trying your best. Guys, in the book of Tobit, this is a book that I like, right? Because of Archangel Raphael. But in the book of Tobit, at some point when Archangel Raphael manifests himself to Tobit the father and Tobias, he comes, I think it's in chapter 12, and he tell them like, I was sent by God to take care of you, because every prayer you said and you prayed, he was taking notes of. Every, charity action you did, he saw. Every fight in tribulation and you were trying, he saw. So every little things, every help you give the poor. He was telling like the Tobit the father, because one time they were celebrating, like the feast, and he didn't want to start eating without bringing some poor people from like the city. So he left the dinner, went outside, brought some people, and like to celebrate the feast. All these little things God is taking care of. He's seeing. It doesn't go unnoticed, right? So every time you're going to try to forgive, even when maybe you're right, every time you're going to accept the apology of your spouse, even if he or she has been doing it for the past 20 times, he's going to take notice of that. You're going to be rewarded. And that's why your spouse is your cross for salvation. He's going to take care of that. Okay? Number 4, pray together in time of conflict. It's very important. In the book of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 20, it says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I will join. Right? So can you imagine in a conflict, if you kind of both, instead of yelling at each other, let's say a little prayer, and then we'll discuss after. I think when we talk about this, we kind of look at each other as like, oh my gosh, Abuna is crazy. Nobody is going to do this. When I'm like we're yelling at each other, we're going to stop and we're going to pray? Yes, you can. Again, it's a decision. And when you're going to pray, by the way, again, you don't need to like take a time out and like you just like pray like the whole, like can you read the 150 Psalm? You don't need to do that. But it's just a little prayer will ground you, will bring you back to the reality. It's like, this is my partner. This is the one that I chose. That I was waiting for their calls at some point. I was like going and doing manicure and pedicure and this and that, like to meet with them. I was going crazy before, getting married, and we were like so excited and all that stuff. And now what? You don't have any excitement anymore? Because like we're having an argument. So when we pray, we start being grounded again and we think about God. So we speak Christ in the couple. Number two, we remember that we're together for salvation, for the same goal. We're not here just to fix the issue. The issue, this is going to be fixed. Number three, we remember that God the Pantocrator is the one that will be able to give us the wisdom to fix it. Because I don't have to lean on my own understanding. I need to trust God. And number four, it brings us back to connect and say, we'll pray together. So we're one. Can you imagine after doing all that? And by the way, it takes a minute, it takes 2 minutes. Then it's going to kind of settle down. You're going to be a little bit more relaxed. I guarantee. Because your mind is going to be wired differently. Yes.
I just want to see to that point when you're saying the two things that you're saying, take a minute, just take a deep breath. And then you said about the prayer. I think it also plays a physical, there's a physical factor
Yes.
here. When your mind is not on the conflict, when you're praying, you're allowing your body to get rid of the adrenaline.
Correct.
So it's not, the fight is lessened.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like the slow to speak and slow to anger. Like this is God, when he says something in the Bible, like he's thinking about the human being, like he's the one that created the human being, like, the physical component, like the psychological component. So absolutely, you're absolutely right. Like to the point that sometimes, like, you suggest to people, like, hold hands when you're praying. Can you imagine when you're fighting and you're holding hand, like there's like a body component, there's a touch component. You're going to think about it differently. This is my spouse. This is the person that I really love. This is the person that I chose. This is the person that God entrusted me with. It's so different than, being apart, like, you're screaming at each other, like, through the rooms, and like, we're fighting and all that stuff. It's a different environment. Guys, like I always say, like when we start arguing at home, like the devil is waiting, because he's waiting and he's going to have like that kind of crack in the wall to go through. But when you bring Christ, even in the argument, right? But he just wait for the crack, because the more we're like throwing at each other comment, like, through the rooms, I'm getting hyped, and then like he can plant the seed and saying like, oh, but she doesn't listen to me, we talked about this 100 times, and look at him, he's not like, he's yelling at me, and he is raising his voice, he's not respecting me, and it goes on and on and on, and it's never going to finish, like, in the right way. So pray instead, right? When we were talking about maybe holding hands, and always remember that God is the third chord, in the book of Ecclesiastes, right? Like God is the third chord. Your relationship together is like linked, through God. St. John Climacus actually says, prayer is the chain that binds husband and wife to heaven. It's the chain to bind husband and wife to heaven. That's prayer. So, last point. So we talked, what are the 4 points that we talked about? First one is, it's going to be a long night. Okay. I'm not leaving.
Take a minute. Take a breath.
Take a minute. Deep breath. Okay. Number 2. Sorry? Yes, what's that point? When we say I feel, that means I'm going to communicate. Communicate in humility and love, right? Okay, number 3.
Forgive quickly and apologize quickly.
Excellent. Forgive quickly and apologize quickly. Number 4. Prayer. Prayer. Bring Christ into the argument. Okay? And last but not least, remember the goal. Remember why are you together. Sometimes we forget really. And that's the whole concept. Like when pride and ego goes in, we become truly opponent. It's like who's gonna win, and we go over and over, and we forget that we're actually together to go to heaven. This argument, regardless, if I win and Irini loses, like we're actually not going to heaven, right? But if we work it out and we're both in peace, yes, maybe someone is going to compromise at some point. Yes, that's okay. But as long as it's done in love, in humility, in calmness, in peace, right? So it's important to remember the actual goal. Like love bears all things, believes all things, hope all things, endures all things. Where is that? 1 Corinthians 13. That's the chapter of love. By the way, something that I would challenge you to do when you have an argument, right? Always have it like, for example, like, there's so many things that you can buy from Winners and all the stuff, like, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse like 4 to 8, and like you have them, right? And just like you start like, while you're arguing, you're like, look at each other and like do this. Just gonna put like some humor in it, and then it's gonna remind you really the true goal is what? It's actually like to really work things together. Like we have to endure everything, right? Like try to when you're gonna look at that, like choose peace over pride in those moments. And last point in that, when you kind of remember the goal, ask yourself when you're fighting, is it worth it for my eternity? 9 times out of 10 it's not. I kid you not. If you start like taking notes, it's going to be like the more conflict we have, it's usually over stupid things. For example, I'm used to like spend this way, but now you have one guy or one like lady in the couple, like they're like working with spreadsheets and like paying this and paying that and all that stuff, and then I go like I make a purchase. It's like, what do you mean? Like we were planning like on vacation and we're going this, and now it's like ruined, and like, oh my goodness, it's the end of the world. Your Mexico trip is not gonna affect your salvation. You go like in your Mexico trip, instead of like planning to go like next summer, you're gonna go like in the fall, but you keep your peace in the couple. You remember the goal of if you being together, guys. You being together is not only, to be honest, like just for like having a companion and like intimacy and all that stuff, and that's it. It's not the main goal. And if this how you built your marriage, change. It's not too late. You just started. So it's okay. Talk about it and change the goal of the marriage, right? Your marriage is built on the rock, is built on Christ. So Christ has to be in the midst of it, even in a small argument or a small conflict. I think that's it. I don't know how long I talked, but okay. Thank you, guys. Any questions? أبونا موجود.
Rafael.
Sure.
I just want to take everything that you said, and I love every point, but we talked about